Hi guys, Joyce Monday. Welcome to hashtag No Filters with me, Cheryl, Norris, Hopkins. 1st of March 2021. Follow the pool. Do it or don't. Thanks so much for joining us again. If you're a regular, and thanks for coming along for the first time. If that's the case, as always, never sharing the truth. More of an invitation for more freedom, more ease, and a lot more joy in the cray that we're all currently going through. So just to let you know, guys, my signal seems to be dropping in and out a bit, so hopefully it'll keep us online, but maybe it won't. We'll find out. So today, follow the pool, I want to entitle this little chat. And as always, it's just basically me sharing some insights, some different perspectives, so that it inspires you, invites you to follow what's true for you and to create your path, right? Rather than kind of yakking and waiting to see what the world does and also feeling that you have no choice. Because we all want choice, let's be honest. So follow the pool. That's kind of been inspired over the last few days. And I went to online workshop the weekend on permaculture, which basically is about your ability to live off grid in many respects, to create basically more than you take. So from the utilities you use to the construction of your home to the where you provide your own food, right? And I guess it kind of follows on a little bit on the show that I did a couple of weeks ago on decluttering, smaller bites dash, time to declutter. And that I've always been somebody that's sort of aware of what I'm doing in my environment, but I've made more and more little changes, and from the products that I'm using to, whether I distill my water versus buy bottled water, all those kind of things. But I've been feeling more and more, particularly with the world situation, what would I do to be even more self-sufficient if I needed to be? And so I've been thinking about, I might start growing some stuff, right? And so I kind of started thinking about, well, if I'm going to grow some things, what's involved in growing food? And so something popped up on the old Facebook feed, serendipitously, on permaculture. I thought, well, I don't know that much about it, but I'll attend this thing. And so it started talking about, as I say, about how you put different plants together and how they support each other and how you put animals on the land and da 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 da. And so everything feeds each other, everything's interconnected. And you go from the small space, and eventually you start to look at how you might retrofit your house through to actually maybe living on a big bit of land where you might build something new. But it's not only self-sustaining, it actually creates more than it uses. Right? So, you might end up putting in, let's say you put in, it's not so much monetary, but let's say as a monetary example, you put in 10 grand, you end up start producing stuff that each year creates 20 grand. So yes, profitable, but more about actually that you can take care of yourself, your family, your community, right? And you're enriching nature rather than taking from nature. So the reason I share this is because it got me thinking to the next level. And it was a bit like a door opened to the next stage, possible stage of my life. And that once I'm aware of something new, a new insight, a new awareness, I can never really go back. So guys, where in your life are you becoming aware of a new possibility, a new way of living, a new something, but you can't go back? As in, it's pulling you, it's inviting you to go into a new way of being, and you're not necessarily ready for it, or maybe you are ready for it, but it might be bringing up some stuff for you. Now, guys, I'm not sure if I'm online because my other device isn't showing it, but hey, hopefully I am. If I am, and you can see me okay, write me a little comment because it makes it easy for me to see who's there. Oh no, I think I am. This is looking good. Okay, yeah, it makes it easy for me to see who's there. So, yeah, so let me get back. Where in your life is there something starting to tickle you, something you're aware of, something you've been aware of for a while, maybe, you've been trying to ignore possibly, or something that really excites you? It could be anywhere on that spectrum, right? That you're maybe thinking would be a really convenience. But it's there, it's like kind of, could be niggling, or it could be, enticing you, but it's in your world, but you've yet to kind of move into that space. And if you do move into that space, what's going to have to change? Right? And so I guess that's why the title of the show came about, the follow the pull. Do you follow the impulse, that desire that's stirring in you or has been growing in you? Or do you ignore it? Do you try to keep things the same? So my situation, my scenario, I live in a home. It's a brand new home. It's just a few years old. It's lovely. I really love the development and the area I live in. And now that I'm aware that there's this stirring in me to not necessarily go and buy a big piece of land. It's not that, but I'm feeling as if I need to, now I'm aware of how much more I could contribute or do less harm, how I could do less harm in the world, the environment, on the land. How ultimately, if all the shops shut, beyond a few suppliers I happen to always have in, and a few more, to be fair, I've got a few more in over this last year. Wouldn't take long before I was completely out of the ability to feed my family and my partner and I. Okay, I can go longer. I can definitely fast. My partner wouldn't be able to go that long, but it wouldn't take too long before we ran out of stuff. And there's a whole movement called prepping, which where people stockpile stuff, for a year, 2 years, whatever it is. Now, yeah, we can all go and stockpile a few bits, and it's not to say that wouldn't be a good idea, right? Like I like to kind of stockpile toiletry stuff because it's done for 3 months or 6 months at a time, and it's just bulk buy. It's cheaper, it's easier. But that's my kind of normal pattern. I use that stuff and then I'll buy the next lot. But how much would we want to stockpile? And yeah, how much does anybody want to stockpile really? And actually, is that really creating the world we want? Because it's very easy to just think me, me, me. But what about the community you live in? What about your extended family? Even if you start that aspect, your immediate family, your extended family, friends, the community you live in. Does that really work? Because if you think about it, your true survival, your ability to thrive even is based on relationships around you. And so that kind of me only doesn't really work. And even if you're not interested in the environment, whether you like it or not, there's going to be a push for us to be able to support it more, one way or another. Okay? And if you crap on your own doorstep, what are you creating? In terms of if you continue to support things that destroy the environment you live in the world around you. So, for example, there was a wonderful example in this webinar I watched about an egg. I don't happen to eat eggs, but nevertheless, it was on an egg, and it showed just the logistics and all the processes involved in getting that egg to you in the supermarket or to us. The mass farming, all the water produced, to create the grain for the feed, and then to actually, and all the harvesting involved in that to then feed the chickens, to then all the machinery used to collect the eggs. Obviously, the veterinary aspects of keeping the animals and attempting to keep them healthy because they're in an unnatural environment, most of them, and then getting the egg transported to be processed, to be cleaned, to then be actually get into the market, pre-packaged, to then get it into the shelves, right? Stored, unpacked, all that versus having a chicken out in the yard that produces an egg. And so it just got me really thinking. And the reason I'm sharing this, and I always go off the fly, so hey, hopefully, guys, this is kind of following something, but it's really stirred up that thing in me about, gosh, there's a lot of things I'm choosing that actually are creating harm or are put more drain and resources on the world around me than necessarily needed. And now that I'm aware of it to the next degree, I can't ignore it. So what am I going to do about it? And the land and the growing thing, although I'm not somebody that spends all my time out or has ever been somebody that really professes to be really into gardening, but I have grown some stuff in the past, and it was pretty amazing. And I'm feeling the pull now of like the idea of possibly moving and having somewhere that's got more space. And so, guys, what's going on in your world? Do you feeling the pull to change the kind of work you do, to change where you live? Are you feeling the pull to change who you live with? Are you feeling the pull to express the way you see the world, and that's been changing? What you thought you were, is that changing? When you look back, you look over the last year we've had, and obviously everybody's had their world twisted and turned, and are you that person you were then? With the space we've had in our day-to-day, things would have come up, right? There's more space for things that you may not have looked at or tried to avoid or desired to really start to germinate and really blossom or take a deeper hold. And you can attempt to continue to ignore that and deny that, but it's going to get stronger. And over the last few days, I felt that in me, when I had this, like everything, I'm constantly discovering, rediscovering, opening, getting more and more clarity and more growing into the next aspect of who I am. I've always had that in my life. It's always been part of me. And I've never been able to just ignore something once I'm aware of it. But it has been a bit tricky the last few days because I'm like, damn, I could it's so much easier if I didn't know, right? It's like, oh no, I just kind of got settled here. I mean, 3 years, right? But I'm like, why? Why would you want to move? And what if my partner doesn't want to go? And it may not be with my partner. There's things that we have different interests in certain things, and that's not his path necessarily. So it might not be just moving home, it might be moving relationship. And again, I've done that in the past. Obviously, he's not my only partner, and I'm always very clear and very straight about something when I get involved in any type of relation, friends, work, clients, partner, any of that, even family. I've had 3 families, right? So, I follow it whilst it's still joyous, whilst we're still growing and contributing to each other. There's a natural time, everybody grows. So I'm like, oh, God, that could be happening too. That's a possibility. So where in your world, guys, are you noticing that stuff and maybe you're not wanting to look at it? Or actually, further along the scale, and it's not either or, but I'm just using the 2 ends of the examples because it's just to give a perspective, right? And find anything in between and even beyond that. But where in your world are you feeling that stuff? Something's been taking a stronger pull or starting to whisper in your ear. And the reason I raise it and I share it is just to give you an invitation, say, hey, Juan, that's cool. It's okay. Because most of us think that once we've got something, once something's comfortable and set up, then we should be content. And why would we want anything else? But what if that's the essence of one of our amazing gifts and capacities that we constantly wish to create and explore? A bit like a child, they're constantly creating and exploring and moving beyond where they were the day before. Because if they didn't, they'd never get out of their crib, right? They'd still be laying on their backs in their cots. But they learn to roll over and to move another limb and to sit up and to start crawling and standing and speaking and it goes on. So that we've got this idea as adults, I think we get to a certain stage once we've been educated, once we've got the job, the house, the partner, the kids, whatever. That's the normal path, right? The conventional path. Everything should be, and possibly the mortgage paid off or not, depending where you are in life. That's what we should be content. Maybe some people are. But I think inherently in who we are, that's probably not our design. And our world has been set up for us to constantly desire more from a consumer point of view. But what if that consumerism really is an external representation of what our true inner desires are? And so we've been taught to project it out and go out there and buy and shop and stuff. But really, it's actually your innate desire to create a life for yourself that actually is the true essence. And we kind of displaced it into consumerism. It's almost as if so much of our society is set up to take what's natural and it attempts to replicate it. So I'm just going to follow this guy. So I'm just thinking about the body's natural ability to heal itself. And then we've set up whole medical industries, pharmacology, surgical, to kind of take that place. There's herbal remedies and herbs in nature. Again, we use pharmacology, or you know, people as a kid we used to go out and play and just hang out in the playing fields, or go and hang somebody's garden, or run down the street, or whatever it is. And now people want to be entertained by a device and by a gaming console. And not saying any of those things are right and wrong, but there's a lot of displacement from what's our natural inner state to the external world, and looking for things out there to fulfill it. So that's a bit of a, but hey. So I guess what I'm inviting you to, and what I'm exploring in real time with you, as always, is if there's something stirring in you, how can you express that naturally? I don't even know if that makes sense. Okay, but versus, let's say you have a desire for your partner to be something different. I'm just going to go with this example. Where can you find that fulfillment within yourself, as opposed to wanting or desiring them to be it? Now, this is kind of could be a kind of words, because that's not to say that you couldn't have a desire for your partner to be something or to be with somebody else who's different. And I've done a whole show on relating relationships, right, of all types. So that might be a cool one to explore. I guess I'm really trying to get to this space of, and today this feels extra rambly, right? So if it's of no value, sorry guys, but I just go with what's up in the moment. I guess I'm just really tempted to invite you to really start to listen to your inner voice, to that inner knowing, to the things that are catching your attention, and be willing to explore them more, to go towards them rather than trying to ignore them. Because I think there's a lot of things we attempt to ignore that are coming up. We tend to squash it down, which in our busy lives we were able to do now. Not to say we're not busy, but obviously a lot more of us at home. It may not be quite so easy. So rather than pushing it down to explode somewhere else, what about starting to look at what it is? And it can be an amazing thing. It's not about, oh, no. But even if it's something amazing, we often have this thing about apprehension, possibly fear for some people, doubt about letting go of our current situation, which also would tie back in really nicely with the show I did, entitled "One Out of Lockdown, Face Death." That I spoke a lot about that in there. 3 things I spoke about: facing your own mortality, facing the death of a lifestyle, which a lot of us have been invited to, and then facing the death of another. And I'm really aware that this awareness now about possibly living somewhere where there's a bit more space. It could still be a garden, right? But somewhere where there's that ability to grow and nurture the ground, and therefore the contribution to the environment. And even, God, the desire to parent to a degree I've got coming up in my space, which has come up a couple of times in this year. I don't have any children of my own. It's something that I considered, but it wasn't a strong pull. But I've coached kids and worked with kids, and I really love the magic of who they are. But I've not had the massive strong desire to bear one. And I don't necessarily have the desire to have a baby myself, but I do feel this desire coming in through me to be even considering, well, would I be in partnership with somebody and co-parent their kid? Like, that's in my space. It's bubbled in my space once or twice before in my lifetime, but it started to get a little bit stronger. It's like popped up again, and it's that. So am I going to follow that? It's pulling on me. I mean, maybe it might be fostering. I came through foster care and adoption, and quite an easy, simple route. For me, it wasn't lots of change. Sort of, ones that are parents till 8, children's home for a year, and then my adoptive parents, and seeing my birth mother in some of that time. So mine was quite a clean route. You know, some kids obviously jump around a lot, and so I'm like, oh, would I want a foster care? And what would that be? Would it be short term? Look, all these things are starting to bubble up. So all these desires to nurture, to I guess to be more interdependent, right? I've been strongly independent. I've become more interdependent, more connected in my partnership as in my personal. And I've always enjoyed people around me, and I've definitely also in my community where I live now and even previous places, I've always made an effort to get to know people around me. And so I'm wanting to contribute to community more and more. Definitely do so on the land and or supporting young people or children is kind of starting to bubble up more and more and more. So I share that, guys, as I guess as a something to bounce off. Yours might be completely different. Hi, Tanya. Thanks for joining, darling. Good to see you too. Joyous Monday. I share that as an invitation for you to start just to see where your own seedlings are sprouting, right? What's starting to pull on you? What's starting to invite you as a future life? Because what I'm aware of right now, there are kind of two real paths that are going on in the world right now. There is the path of those who are design. There's a path of more and more constraint, restriction, and living a more digital life, right? Including digitization of the human being. There is that, where the digitization, the AI, and AI is neutral, but the more aligned we become with tech, whether it's physically in our bodies and devices, that starts to simulate real life. And actually, I saw a really interesting advert the other day. I've seen it before, but there's a bike, so I think it's called Peloton. It's like a cycling exercise bike. And I remember I got invited to do an audition for a shoot for them. But they showed you've got a screen, and they showed like a background on the screen, or they showed a bit like a holodeck on Star Trek. There were screens around this bike, and it was screens of the countryside, obviously simulated. And we see it in sci-fi movies where there's a whole beautiful beach simulated on the screen. And so it's almost like the digital world tries to emulate nature by giving the image, but of course it's just an image. So there is going to be that path where people are going to want to, there is one path where people are going to follow that and want to go more and more digitized. And then there's a path where some of us are going to want to go more and more connection with nature. And I think overall it will become more naturistic, and then we'll use tech in a really cool way to support us and nature. But I think at the moment we've got these two paths that are starting to grow more and more. So where are you in your journey? Are you wanting to go more down the digital and the artificial? Or are you designed to be more in connection with nature, community, and supporting locality? I've just ordered some t-shirts, tops, a bit like I was wearing last week, I think, the Kind Company. It's a different brand. But they get printed on demand, which means, I put an order in, but they leave maybe a week before they actually start to dispatch the top in case somebody else might order it as well. So they do a specific print run, but it's very small. But obviously it would optimize the number of tops they produce, and therefore minimize the impact in terms of turning machines on just for one. And then they dispatch it, and it takes maybe 10 to 15 days, working days, for it to then be shipped. So in total, it could take a month for my tops to get here. Now, how many people will wait a month for a piece of clothing? Up to a month for a piece of clothing to get to them. Now, the clothing, is it's organic, vegan, pet friendly, low impact on transportation. It's all things that minimize the harm to the environment and nurture it more. How many people have got I need it now? If we're used to Amazon or whoever it is dropping stuff at their door the next day or 2 days, and that's it. Which is fine. And what's the impact of that? So what choices you make in your day-to-day life, how are they affecting you, the world around you? And where are you feeling yourself pulled to make some changes? Okay? And are you willing to now start to give them some of those things attention, no matter what, because they're going to pull on you anyway? Are you willing to start to follow, take a little step? So for me, I'm like sitting with that. Okay, well, if I'm possibly going to be moving, whether it's moving on my own, if I'm possibly going to be getting involved somehow with parenting somebody or supporting young people or somebody's kid, or I mean, this is all still quite fresh in my world right now, as in the intensity of it. It's only sort of Saturday that it started to get pushed to that next level. It was coming up, but it kind of got pushed to that next, like, okay, well, I could do that. Let me make a plan, but actually, it's not that solid. It's more a case of I'm going to start to be more aware of those sensations, those feelings, those thoughts, and if it really does become something that really starts to pull more and more strongly, it felt pretty damn strong when I first felt it at the weekend, I have to say. What am I going to need to do? What do I need to do in my current home and my current life to prepare for it? And if it happens and it really pulls me, then I'll be ready to go. And if it doesn't, okay, I'll have cleared up whatever's currently in my space, So what else do I need to declutter? What else do I need to learn about the potential? Who's in my community, or who do I know? My friendships, or community could be, online, in person, that might want to do this with me. Are there friends I could do this with? Is there some? If I'm potentially going to do this and not doing it with my current partner, and that may be the case, guys. I'm very straight about that. He has different aspirations in many things, and what in terms of there's a lot of joy, and there's things that we're into that are very much separate and in their own space, which has always been the case in my relationships. And I personally think that's healthy. There's things that are joyous together, and there's things that one enjoys separately. And then there's the next step where there's another evolutionary jump, and he's going to be going through his as well. I've got, there's things that he's thinking about, and that could still keep us together, but it might not. And that's cool. Sometimes a little bit shocking. Although I always kind of know, I've always been that person. I know I'm in relationship with whoever, whatever, and then it has its time. So it could be how I'm eating, it could be how I'm moving my body, it could be how I'm in an intimate love relationship. I know that about myself. I enjoy it, I grow, and then the next chapter spurts. So, but let's say I am going to be moving to this new thing, and it might be without my partner. Okay, so what do I need to do in preparation for that? And one of the things that came up in my mind was like, I enjoy the hell out of him now, but extra enjoy the hell out of him, because you don't know how long it's going to be. And I'm the kind of person, I just know when I know it's time to do it, it's time to do it. So that's going to be me. I'm going to be following this, right? I'm following the pool right now. And the pool is declutter a few things, extra things in my life, sort out a few of my legal aspects, my financial aspects, enjoy the hell out of my partner, start to see who's in my community, who's in my network, say whether it's friends, whether it's people online that are friends stroke people that are interested in similar things. Just start getting ready, right? And that's as much as I've got right now, right? Because like I say, I could write a whole list and a whole plan, but actually that's not following the true impulse. And with the world changed so much, our strength comes from following the impulses we have, and the like, you could call it intuition, the knowing, and expressing ourselves honestly and clearly. So I've already started to express this, obviously not just to you guys online, you're getting this pretty fresh, but to a couple of people already, including my partner, saying, hey, there's this thing about kids coming into my space, there's this thing about growing on the land. And they're not things that are in his space, right? But it's this thing about the more honest you can be with yourself, the more you can express that to yourself, but also not censor yourself. So if it comes out in the relationships you have around you, that's going to make it easier for you to follow the pool, right? And let that blossom. Guys, I hope that's something useful in there for you. Could be completely not, and that's fine. Like, share, and I'll see you soon. Take care, guys. Thanks for joining. Best for now.